G'day, Greg here from Custom Guns in Invercargill. As part of our series on shotgun basics, we're having a look at shotgun safety. Some of the things you need to think about to be safe with your shotgun. Let's take a look. Here I have a cutout of a over-under shotgun. Now this is an older style lead compatible shotgun that may be able to be used for steel. Couple of things. When you're using an older style shotgun, you'll have a couple of things to consider for its safe use for steel. If we use steel shot in an older gun, we need to make sure that the chokes are not too restricted that it can damage the gun. If you use a choke size greater than half choke or modified, so if it's 3/4 or improved modified, or if it's a full choke, lead shot through that will likely damage the shotgun and maybe the shooter. So you are at risk of putting your mates and yourself at danger if you're shooting a shotgun that's unmodified, an older style shotgun with an unmodified choke. It needs to be relieved to at least half choke so that you're not too heavily restricted. Steel shot pellets won't deform like lead will. So the older style guns that were designed to shoot lead shot, where the pellets will pass through the choke, that area of restriction at the end of the barrel, if it is too tight, steel won't deform like lead and it will cause the barrel to bulge and or possibly burst. I've got some examples I'll show you in a minute. So you need to make sure that the shotgun is safe in terms of the choke restriction. The other thing that you need to be aware of is the shot cartridges sizes. Now, lead shot generally is mostly 2 3/4 size. Steel shot, you'll see 2 3/4 and 3 inch, and even 3.5. Now, an older style shotgun may not be compatible with 3-inch cartridges. Probably likely that it won't. It certainly won't be compatible with 3.5-inch, but a 3-inch cartridge is quite common and a lot of guys are using them, especially in the more modern guns that are built for it. So if you see 3-inch cartridges and you try and put them through an old 2 3/4 shotgun, you can be in for a rude and painful surprise. I have here a 3-inch cartridge and a 2 3/4 cartridge. Now, if you look at the cartridge itself, you'll see the 2 3/4 and the 3-inch cartridges. Of course, the 3-inch cartridge is bigger. Well, you'd expect that. But if I get that 3-inch cartridge and I get my little ruler out, and I use the imperial side of things because everything we're talking about in terms of shotguns is all imperial, and I measure that, you'll see that we've got just on about 2.5 inches. So you think to yourself, well, hang on a second, that's not a 3-inch cartridge, it's only a 2.5-inch cartridge. I even measured it with my ruler. And the reality is that you're wrong. What they're referring to in terms of a 3-inch cartridge is a fired 3-inch cartridge. So here I have my fired case, and if I measure that now, you'll see it is bang on 3 inches. So a 3-inch cartridge is not measured unfired, a 3-inch cartridge is measured fired. Same with your 2 3/4. So I've got a 2 3/4 and a 3-inch cartridge there. You'll see there we've got about 1/4 of an inch more length on the 3-inch cartridge than the 2 3/4. So where guys get caught out is they get their old 2 3/4 sized shotgun and they get their 3-inch cartridge and they drop the 3-inch cartridge into the shotgun and it fits. Of course, the shotgun has the chamber made to fit a 2 3/4 cartridge that's open. This thing it's only 2.5 inches long. Problem that you've got, and if you see here, I have the forcing cones, the area where it goes from the chamber, and then the chamber becomes the barrel. It's a tapered section, and that's in front of the cartridge at the moment. If we get our fired case and we put it in there, you'll see that the end of the hull actually enters the section of the forcing cone. I have to force it in there to get it to fit. So it's now jammed into essentially the barrel. What that means is that the shot pellets and the wad need to now be forced and squeezed down to pass through the hull and are forced into the barrel. So it's undue pressure. Now we've talked about pressure before. The pressure on A 2 3/4 lead cartridge is much, and that's what this thing's made for, is much less than a 2 3/4 steel cartridge. And you can imagine it's significantly less than a 3-inch steel cartridge, and significantly less than a 3-inch steel cartridge that's now been restricted by the chamber. So if you're unlucky enough or silly enough to make the mistake of chambering a 3-inch cartridge and trying to fire it in your 2 3/4 gun, you're possibly going to damage the shotgun, you're possibly going to injure yourself or your mates in the mai, and you're more than likely going to do some pretty significant damage. You'd be lucky if you get out of it without having done some fairly significant damage to yourself. So here's a couple of examples of what can happen when you have a barrel blockage or when you have an incorrect choke in your shotgun. So this is an example here. We've cut the end of the shotgun off. You can see the bead. They've discharged their bottom barrel. The bottom barrel was too tight a restriction, causing the end of the barrel to essentially be blown off. This guy shot the shotgun, it went kaboom. He was completely uninjured. His mate got 9 stitches in his forehead. Something to think about. Next one along. Zip. This is the end of the barrel. Pull the trigger and just zip that open. You said it made a god almighty noise. Couldn't work out what was wrong. Had a look at the end of the barrel, saw that, came in to see us and asked whether or not we could weld it closed. I think you can see the result. Another area that we've got to be really cautious about is if you're shooting with your mates and somebody's got a 20 gauge cartridge. Now I have a 20 gauge cartridge here. You'll see the 20 gauge cartridge is slightly smaller than a 12 gauge. You'll also notice the colour. 12 gauge cartridges come in red, blue, pink, orange, grey, black, white, whatever. 20 gauge cartridges are always yellow. And they do that to signify, hey, this is different. So if you have a look at the size, it is certainly slightly smaller. That slight difference in size means something pretty significant for us if we're a 12 gauge shotgun shooter. Unfortunately, through a quirk of something going wrong when somebody designed something, the 20 gauge cartridge drops perfectly into the 12 gauge barrel and stops dead right at the end of your forcing cones. So what that now means is that you've got a barrel blockage right at the end of the chamber. So you can imagine the situation. You're sitting in the mai, it's pretty early in the morning, quite dark. You know, you crouch down waiting for some ducks to come in. You reach down into the bucket and you grab a couple of shotgun cartridges and you put them into your shotgun and you reach up, click, what have I done? And you look in the barrel, well there's no shotgun cartridge in there. Well, I'll put one in. It must have fell out on the floor. And so you put a 12 gauge cartridge dead in front of your 20 gauge cartridge. So we have got a significant disaster waiting to happen. And if you discharge that 12 gauge cartridge, it's going to fire the shot straight into the back of the 20 gauge cartridge, which of course the primer in there is going to mean it lights up. So you've now got a 12 gauge cartridge stuck in the chamber with a whole bunch of shot trying to go that way, and then you've got a 20 gauge cartridge which is going to blow out and fill up the barrel, and it's going to try and push that out as well. You've got a significant situation where somebody is likely to get significantly injured. I have met people who have had this accident take place and they've lost bits and pieces. Fingers gone, eyesight, all sorts. Bad news. Be very, very careful. And even if you just tip her up and, oh, no, there mustn't be anything in there. If you think you've got a 12 gauge and a 20 gauge issue, if you think you might have picked one up, you need to look up the barrel and make sure there's not a blockage and you haven't got that stuck. That's going to need to be poked out with a brush from the end of the barrel, a rod to try and tap that out, because that's going to fit in there perfectly and it just won't fall out. It just doesn't drop out. So be very careful with if you've got your mates around that are shooting 20 gauge, that their ammo is well separate and everyone keeps everyone's ammo separate so you don't have that issue. Of course, you're not going to fit that in a 20 gauge, but you certainly can fit that in your 12. Something to think about. Righto, thanks guys. Hopefully you learned something. If you've got any other queries and questions, come on down and see us. My name's Greg. We're at Custom Guns. It's 127 Yarrow Street. We're just out the front of Status Guns, one of the most comprehensive gunsmiths you're likely ever to see. We've got lots of firearms here for you to check out. Come and check out our shotguns, come and check out our rifles, ammo, we've got accessories, everything you need for your firearms. Come on down and see us, and we'd like to say good day. Thanks for watching.